You're standing in the Good Springs Cemetery. The tutorial just ended. You open your Pip-Boy and see New Vegas on your map, a bit up north. The game wants you to go south, loop around through Prim and Nipton, but that's the long way. You're smarter than that. You're going to walk straight there. So, you head north. A few geckos appear. You're level 3 with a varmint rifle and full of naive confidence. Then, you hear it. That sound. The buzz. You look around and there's nothing. Then the combat music hits. Somewhere behind you, a Cazador is closing the distance at a speed your brain can't process. You fire twice and miss. You're already dead. You just don't know it yet. And you're still lucky that it wasn't a death claw. This is the Mojave's first lesson, the starting ritual every player goes through. But here's what most people never learn. That Cazador is more than simply a randomly spawned enemy. It was designed in a laboratory by a scientist whose memories are so scrambled he can't remember the year he created them. And it escaped. You think you know these creatures, the Deathclaw, the Nightkin, the Centaur, the thing in the water at Lake Med. You've fought them, you've died to them, but their origins, the actual timeline of how radiation, experiments, and the forced evolutionary virus turned the Mojave into a graveyard of walking nightmares, that's a story most players never piece together. So, let's open the bestiary and investigate New Vegas's most horrifying creatures, all the way up to the one that's so existentially terrifying, it will make you want to uninstall the game. We begin not with the most apex predators, but with a creature that watches from Lake Med, with eyes that reflect no light. The Lake Lurk. The official NCR survival manual describes the Lake Lurk as mutated amphibian displaying territorial aggression near bodies of water. This is a lie of omission. The manual fails to mention the sonic shriek that ignores armor plating. It fails to mention claws that can puncture power armor, and the fact that these creatures move through water with a grace that suggests intelligence and purpose, like they're waiting for something. The Lake Lurk occupies a strange space in the community consciousness. It's viewed as a lazy asset flip from Fallout 3, where it was the Maya Lurk king. Yet, it possesses some of the most bizarre behavioral quirks in the game. It's not revered like the Deathclaw. It's not hated with the burning passion reserved for the Cazador. Instead, it inspires a kind of uneasy disgust, the way one might regard a cockroach that has learned to swim. The creature's humanoid proportions, its bipedal stance, elongated limbs, and a head that sits atop the shoulders like a parody of human anatomy, place it squarely in the uncanny valley. It's too human to be dismissed as mere wildlife, yet too alien to be comprehended. The early prospectors who mapped Lake Med in the post-war years left scattered logs, most recovered from their corpses. One such log found near Corval Bay Marina reads, "The things in the water don't hunt like animals. They circle. They watch. It's like they're studying us." The writer did not survive to file a second report. To understand the Lake Lurk, one must descend into Camp Guardian. The caves beneath the ranger station contain the highest concentration of Lake Lurks in the Mojave, and more importantly, they contain Private Stone and Private Halford, two men whose fate encapsulates the creature's true nature. The terminal entries paint a picture of slow horror. Camp Guardian was a training facility, remote and self-sufficient. Then the Lake Lurks arrived, not in a sudden swarm, but gradually, emerging from the underground lake systems that connect to the Colorado River. Private Stone's final log describes hearing scratching sounds from the lower tunnels, like someone dragging metal across rock. By the time the Rangers realized they were under siege, the Lake Lurks had already claimed the deep caves. The sonic attack is the key to understanding their hunting pattern. Unlike the Cazador's venom or the Deathclaw's raw physicality, the Lake Lurk employs psychological warfare. The shriek is disorientating. Survivors report temporary blindness, ringing in the ears that persists for days, and a peculiar sensation described as feeling your thoughts scatter. This is radiation weaponized, not just against your body, but against your consciousness itself. Private Holford survived by retreating to the upper levels and sealing himself in. When you find him, he's barely coherent, reduced to a creature of pure survival instinct. And here's where the Gamebryo engine starts to reveal its accidental genius. When you rescue Holford, he often glitches, charges back into the caves with nothing but a combat knife, and dies screaming in the dark. The game cannot decide if he's a smart survivor or a valiant fool. Neither can the Lake Lurks. Now we arrive at the strangest truth, the engine limitation that reveals more than any lore entry could. Lake Lurks cannot attack underwater. Technically. Mechanically. They swim alongside you, keeping perfect pace, staring with those dead eyes, but they cannot harm you. This is not a design choice. According to the developer Joshua Sawyer, the developers could not implement any form of underwater combat in the Gamebryo's engine, meaning no characters or creatures in Fallout Vegas are able to attack while fully submerged. Lake Lurks will follow the player and swim near them, but they are essentially harmless underwater. And yet, players have reported spending minutes, sometimes hours, swimming through Lake Med with a Lake Lurk escort. The creature doesn't leave, it simply accompanies. One testimony from Reddit user GameMaster describes naming his Lake Lurk companion Blake and imagining elaborate backstories and movie scenes through the long swim to the B-29 bomber wreckage. But Blake got stuck due to some collision meshes of a sunken truck, and is reportedly still there to this very day, waiting for the player to return to continue their great adventures. This creates an existential paradox. In the water, the Lake Lurk is harmless, almost companionable. On the land, it's a nightmare. The creature's identity is defined entirely by the medium it inhabits. It's a Schrodinger's predator, simultaneously friend and executioner, the state determined only by the player's relationship to the surface. There's something profoundly tragic about this. The Lake Lurk is trapped between two worlds, fully belonging to neither. It's an amphibian that cannot reconcile its amphibious nature, and perhaps this is why it shrieks, not as an attack, but as a lament. The sonic blast is a grief made audible, the sound of something that knows it should not exist, yet persists anyway. The Lake Lurk proves that horror is not always about what can kill you. Sometimes, horror is about what could be different, what is almost right but fundamentally broken. The creature is an evolutionary dead end, a mutation that solved nothing, improved nothing, simply created a new form of suffering. The Lake Lurk is the Mojave's reminder that safety is always temporary, and that things are only docile because they're currently incapable of violence, not because they have chosen mercy. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the Mojave, subscribe. We've got 6 more creatures to dissect, and this next one, the Cazador, is personal. Hit that button. It really helps us out, since we're just getting started. Let's continue. Say the name of the Cazador aloud, and watch New Vegas fans flinch. This is documented community trauma. The Cazador is New Vegas's gatekeeper, the North Road's final warning, the insect that taught an entire generation of players what helplessness tastes like. Every new player receives the same advice. Swing east through Nipton. Approach New Vegas from the Long 15. This is the intended path, the narrative arc the developers designed. But the map whispers a different truth. Look north. See how the mountains frame a direct route to New Vegas. The community has turned this geographic temptation into an initial ritual. On forums, in guides, in hushed Discord channels, veterans tell newcomers, just go north. Ignore the warnings. It's faster. This is ritual sacrifice. It's the community ensuring that every player experiences the same formative trauma, the same moment of hubris punished. The Cazador is not a random mutation. It's a war crime with wings. Dr. Boris of Big Mountain's Z14 pepsinane DNA splicing laboratory created them, though his memories of when exactly remain muddled. He insists it was a Tuesday, possibly May 2003, and that they are docile, curious, safe, sterile. He's wrong on every account. The base template was the tarantula hawk wasp, already one of nature's most horrifying insects. The female wasp hunts tarantulas, paralyzing them with a sting ranked among the most painful in the insect kingdom, drags the still living spider into a burrow, and lays a single egg inside its abdomen. The larva hatches and consumes the spider alive, carefully avoiding vital organs to keep the meal fresh. This is the creature Dr. Boris decided to make bigger. The Old World Blues DLC reveals that the Cazadores did escape Big Mountain, that they did breed, that they spread across the Mojave and into the Zion Canyon with terrifying efficiency. Dr. Boris confidently denies this reality even as the evidence surrounds him. This is the scientist's ultimate sin, his inability to comprehend that his contained experiment has become an ecological catastrophe. The Cazadores found in Big Mountain are tougher, drop more poison glands, and move with a coordinated intelligence that suggests hive communication. These are the original strain. Everything in the Mojave is their descendant, their diaspora. You feel a little woozy. 5 words that have transcended their status as a UI notification to become a death sentence. The venom of the Cazador is not instantaneous, and this is crucial. You kill the thing, you survive the encounter, but you still watch, helpless, as your hit points drain to 0 over the next seconds while you frantically scroll through your inventory with no antidote, no stimpaks, no hope. This delayed death creates a psychological horror distinct from any other creatures in the game. The death claw kills you instantly. Terrible, but clean. The Cazador lets you believe you won, lets you start looting its corpse. Then it kills you anyway. The poison is post-mortem revenge, the insect's final joke. The community has developed specific acoustic trauma around the Cazador. The wing buzz is high-pitched, frantic, layered. You hear it before you see them. Fans report genuine anxiety responses to similar sounds in real life, like lawnmowers or ceiling fans. And here is where we must discuss the wing clip strategy. Crippling the wings in vats transforms the Cazador from an untouchable nightmare into a pathetic, scuttling target. There's something deeply satisfying, almost sadistic about this reversal. The creature that moves too fast to track is reduced to hobbling pursuit. This is a shift from victim to executioner. The Cazador becomes a symbol of the player's capacity for retribution. Lead designer Joshua Sawyer has stated that the Cazadores are his proudest contribution to New Vegas. He wanted to create a serious mutated insect enemy because the Fallout's other insects were wimpy. He succeeded beyond measure. The Cazador has become the franchise's most hated creature, surpassing even the Deathclaw in terms of sheer player animosity. But the Deathclaw is objectively more dangerous. So, why is that? The answer lies in agency. You can see a Deathclaw coming. You can prepare, retreat, choose the terms of engagement. The Cazador denies you choice. It's faster than you, it flies, it swarms. It appears from nowhere and offers no negotiation, only venom. The Cazador teaches that overwhelming force is less terrifying than blistering speed. The creature embodies the Mojave's central thesis. You are not the apex predator here. You're a piece of food that learned to hold a gun. Let's descend into Vault 22. The Mojave is brown, sun-bleached, honest in its deadness. But Vault 22 is green, and it grows. The air is thick, humid, and alive in a way that makes your skin crawl. And within this obscene fertility, within these plants that should not exist, The spore carriers wait. The pre-war sign near Vault 22's entrance speaks of agricultural experimentation, of maximizing crop potential, of fighting global hunger. It does not mention that the scientists who developed the miracle fertilizer became the fertilizer, or that every green thing in this vault grows from corpses. The spore carrier is unique among the Mojave horrors because it's post-human, not mutated human or irradiated human, but after human. The fungus Bovaria mordicana was designed for pest control. Infect the insect, colonize its body, puppeteer its movements to spread more spores. Then, someone decided to see what would happen if you applied it to larger organisms. The answer is in the halls of Vault 22, shambling between the ferns. Thomas Hilderan of the OSI sends mercenaries into Vault 22 to retrieve agricultural data. They do not return. Keeley, his colleague, goes in personally. She barely survives. The quest, "There Stands the Grass," becomes a cautionary tale for trust no vegetation and beware idealistic environmentalists, phrases that sound absurd, well, most of the time at least, but in Vault 22 becomes survival gospel. Dr. Harrison Peters was the first confirmed infection. His terminal entries document the progression with clinical detachment that gradually dissolves into panic. It begins with pneumonia, the spores colonizing the lungs, then chills, fever, and a terrible racking cough. Antifungal treatments fail. The body actively rejects them. Organ failure follows. Death is certain. But death is not the end. The fungus continues growing, spreading through the corpse, establishing neural connections, assuming motor control. Eventually, the dead stand up. They don't speak. They don't remember. They are gardens of flesh, spreading spores to create more hosts, soil, and growth. The Vault 22 scientists attempted to eradicate the infection by flooding the lower levels with flammable gas and igniting it. The plan failed catastrophically. It's speculated the gas release triggered an aggressive response from the carriers, who attacked en masse before the ignition could occur. The scientists were torn apart. The fungus spread. By 2096, Vault 22 was completely abandoned by the living. But some scientists left. 118 survivors fled north to Utah, into Zion Canyon. They encountered a group of Mexican refugees. The Vault 22 dwellers had numbers, discipline, weapons. On February 11th, 2096, they massacred the Mexican men and penned the women and children like livestock. Then, they ate them. Randall Clark, the father in the cave, witnessed this atrocity. He waged a brutal guerrilla campaign, killing 24 of the vault dwellers through ambushes and traps. The survivors, already sick with a coughing disease, fled Zion after 10 months, having eaten their own dead for sustenance. The fungus followed them. It always follows. The spore carrier's defining mechanic is camouflage. They curl into fetal positions within the dense foliage of Vault 22 and enter a dormant state. Crucially, they do not appear on VATS while dormant. The player's radar is useless. Visual identification becomes paramount, but the carrier's texture is nearly identical to the ferns surrounding it. You're walking through the vault's living quarters. Ferns brush against your legs. You've cleared this room. You're certain. Then one of the ferns stands up, unfolds, and lunges. You cannot trust the environment. Every plant might be flesh. This has led to players adopting a different strategy available in the quest, igniting the gas vents in the pest control level. It's the primary way to clear the vault of infection without killing the researcher Keeley, and so it burns every bush, fern, and hint of green. It's ironic that in a vault designed to preserve plant life and create agricultural abundance, players resort to total botanical genocide out of pure paranoia. The runt variant makes this worse. These are child-sized carriers, created from infected children's corpses. They hide on shelves, in lockers, behind furniture. They attack your ankles. They forced you to check every corner, every space a small body could conceal itself. Vault 22 transforms you into a monster hunter checking under the bed, except the monster is real, and the bed is made of corpses. The spore carrier poses an existential question. What is the boundary of the self? If your body continues moving after your mind dies, if fungus puppets your corpse to spread more death, were you ever truly an individual? Or were you always just a temporary configuration of matter, waiting to be recognized into something more efficient? The tragedy of Vault 22 is that the work of the idealist environmentalists succeeded. They wanted to solve hunger through agricultural innovation. The fungus solved hunger permanently by making humans part of the agricultural cycle. Every dead scientist becomes fertilizer for the plant, and every plant produces spores for more dead scientists. It's a perfect, hellish, closed-loop ecosystem. The quest's resolution allows you to ignite the lower levels, to finally complete the purge the scientists failed to execute. You can tell yourself you stopped the spread, but Zion Canyon and Big MT have carriers too. The spores don't stop at the vault doors, and the green always grows back. Vault 22 shows us that life finds a way, but that life is not synonymous with good. Environmentalism that prioritizes itself over the wills of the people is not paradise. And in the Mojave, you are always one breath away from becoming part of someone else's garden. The Deathclaw exists in a divided state of the Fallout iconography. It's simultaneously the poster child of the franchise's horror, but also a solved problem for experienced players. This duality creates a strange relationship. Newcomers fear it with appropriate terror, while veterans treat it with workmanlike efficiency. Still, everyone respects it. The Deathclaw doesn't inspire hatred like the Cazador. It inspires awe. Reports of the creature's origin varies, but the consensus involves pre-war genetic engineering, FEV exposure, and the Jackson's chameleon base as genetic material. They were artificially created for use as weapons. Apex predators designed by committee, evolution accelerated through human intervention and then abandoned to natural selection. In the Mojave, they nest, lay eggs, and form packs with defined social hierarchies. Alpha males, mothers, adolescents, babies. This is a species adapting, thriving, claiming territory that humanity can no longer defend. Quarry Junction was an active mining operation before the Deathclaws arrived. Chomps Lewis, the foreman, describes how they moved in gradually. First, occasional sightings, then nests. Then, the power gangers who worked the quarry simply stopped showing up for shifts. The alpha male and mother form the pack's leadership. They are qualitatively different threats. The alpha's claws can kill a soldier in power armor with a single swipe. The mother, if any of her babies are killed in her presence, enters a berserk state, gaining multiplied damage output, adamantium skeleton, and better criticals perks. She becomes mathematically unbeatable without preparation. This instinctive behavior elevates the Deathclaw beyond simple monsters. This mother is fighting for her offspring. You're the intruder here. The moral calculus shifts uncomfortably. However, human rationality and strategizing still beat brute force. The industrial machinery of the quarry, specifically the rock crushers and conveyor belts, become a sanctuary for players. Deathclaw AI can't navigate the complex industrial ladders or narrow elevated walkways. Players sprint to the nearest conveyor belt and climb to the top. From this perch, the Deathclaws will cluster directly beneath the player, running in circles and roaring. How the tables have turned. This transforms the encounter from an impossible fight to a resource dump, where you simply pour ammunition into the gathered mass until they die. This cheese strategy is considered a legitimate tactical approach by the community, given the overwhelming odds of a fair fight. It's cowardly, but it's the only way some fans can clear the location. A bigger part of the Deathclaw horror is that they are basically invisible until they're not. Their brown coloration matches the quarry's dirt perfectly. New players describe scanning the horizon, seeing nothing, activating VATS, and discovering they're surrounded. The creatures were always there, motionless, waiting. These digital predators are using color camouflage. The Deathclaw promontory compounds this terror. Unlike Quarry Junction, which has warning signs and NPCs cautioning you away, the promontory is an unmarked location. You stumble upon it while exploring. You see what looks like an empty beach across the Colorado River. You swim over. You discover you're standing in a nest of over 30 Deathclaws, including multiple mothers and alphas. There's no escape. The water is no sanctuary as they're fast swimmers. The terrain offers no elevation as the promontory is flat. You simply die, repeatedly, until you accept that this location demands you return over-leveled and angry. The Deathclaw's relationship with the Gamebryo engine creates accidental horror. Their lunge attack often clips through terrain, allowing the creatures to hit you through walls. The ragdoll physics occasionally launch the Deathclaws into low orbit. The community calls this the Deathclaw Space Program. These glitches undercut the terror with comedy. It disobeys physics itself. Lead designer Joshua Sawyer refers to areas like Quarry Junction as beef gates, enemies placed specifically to communicate, "You're not ready for this yet." The Deathclaw is the gate, the wall, the boundary between early game confidence and mid-game humility. And they also represent a much deeper, in-universe lesson. It's the logical endpoint of militarized biology. Efficient, remorseless, stripped of everything except the capacity to kill. And now it nests in the ruins of human industry, raises its young in the quarries humans abandoned, and treats former civilization as hunting ground. The Deathclaw educates the player that apex predators are called apex for a reason, that sometimes the appropriate reasons to danger is not courage, but retreat. And perhaps that's fitting. In a world where humans irradiated the planet into near extinction, the existence of a perfect killing machine feels less like cosmic injustice and more like cosmic balance. The Deathclaw is what we deserve. The Deathclaw is what we made. Now, the radiation that twisted the Cazador and birthed the Deathclaw was already cruel. But when it touched the Nightkin, infecting minds already broken by the master of the super mutant psychic conditioning, it created something much worse. The master of the super mutants was the founder and leader of the Unity, a mutant-led organization dedicated to transforming mankind. His end goal was to create a new race from humanity using FEV, one that could thrive in the post-apocalyptic conditions of the world and rid humanity of its differences and reasons for waging war. The Nightkin were never meant to fail. They were the apex of the Master's vision, the perfected form of humanity's evolution through the forced evolutionary virus. While ordinary super mutants received black uniforms to signify their status as soldiers, Nightkin received something more. Stealth boys, the Master's most advanced technology reserved for spies and assassins. They were the elite. The children of the cathedral spoke of them in hushed reverence. They were mighty killers, rumored to be unkillable, fond of torture, but capable of love, if you squinted hard enough at their definition of the word. They led prayer sessions alongside humans, meditated on the quality of strength, embraced faith as necessary to save humanity. Some even formed romantic relationships with their human peers. A detail so profoundly strange, made even more cruel when you remember that sterility was built into their transformation. When the cathedral was destroyed, the Nightkin scattered, but they took their stealth boys with them into the Mojave. And this is where the tragedy truly begins. The term stealth radiation appears nowhere in pre-war documentation, because pre-war scientists never intended humans to use stealth boys continuously for decades. The technology was designed for brief tactical deployment, minutes, perhaps hours at most, but the Nightkin wore them constantly, because somewhere in the psychic conditioning of the Master's army was the programming that darkness equals safety. Let's see what happened to one of them who hides himself in Sierra Madre. The neurochemical changes began slowly. Paranoia at first. Reasonable, given he was one of the Master's elite soldiers hiding in a world that wanted him dead. Then the hallucinations started. Voices, shadows that moved wrong, the certainty that everyone was watching, always watching. Schizophrenic split personalities emerged. Dog and God, two consciousness sharing one massive blue body. The dog personality carving its own name into its chest with a knife to remember who it was, wrapping a bear trap around its arm to inflict pain that would suppress the God personality's emergence. Dr. Henry at Jacobstown compared the brain chemistry of a nightkin to that of a night stalker, another creature suffering neurological damage. The technology they relied on for survival was killing them, just very, very slowly, and they knew it. That's the cruel detail the fans often overlook. The Night King understand perfectly well what's happening to them. They simply cannot stop. Marcus, the former Nightkin who founded Jacobstown, promised them a cure. Years passed. No cure materialized. Keen, smart, and charismatic with a hell of a mean streak, grew impatient. Others left entirely. Davison and his followers descended on the RepCon test site, turning the facility upside down in a desperate hunt for more stealth boys. And there, in the basement, Davison found God. And they called it Antler. Antler is a Brahmin skull. It's literally the sun-bleached cranium of a two-headed cow, propped on a desk in the RepCon basement. Davison speaks to it, takes orders from it, refers to it as his new master, the replacement for the psychic voice of the master that's been silent for over a century. When you first encounter Davison, he introduces himself with heartbreaking formality. Captain, last name, Davison. First name, don't remember. The mind deterioration has eaten his identity, left him with fragments of military protocol and the desperate need for someone, anyone, to tell him what to do. Antler fills that void. During a quest, if you shoot, touch, or even slightly move Antler, Davison's response is immediate and violent. The entire Nightkin force turns hostile. They think you're disrespecting their god. The correct approach requires participation in the delusion. You must ask what Antler wants with the same earnest respect you'd show any quest giver. And suddenly you're negotiating with a Brahmin skull by proxy. The player becomes complicit in the psychosis. This is lead designer Joshua Sawyer's commentary on faith, leadership, and the lies we tell to function in an incomprehensible world. Fans talk about a strange attachment to this interaction. There's something profoundly respectful about treating Davison's delusion seriously, and recognizing that mocking his coping mechanism would be cruel. The Nightkin are victims of the Master's manipulation, of Stealth Boy radiation, and of a world that has no place for them. Antler is ridiculous, but it's all Davison has left. And that makes me truly ponder, is Antler truly a delusion? In a world where the Master could speak directly into minds, where psychic abilities were documented reality, where one Nightkin group at Black Rock Cave demonstrably possesses telepathic insight, who's to say Davison isn't accessing some genuine supernatural channel? The game never confirms or denies. Antler remains a Schrodinger's god, simultaneously absurd and potentially divine. But not all Nightkin interactions are tragic. Some are just scams. Brooks Tumbleweed Ranch features an unmarked encounter that has archived legendary status amongst the community. A Nightkin appears, invisible, as you approach. He has a business proposition. He will sell you a wind Brahmin for all your caps. The sales pitch is delivered with complete sincerity. Wind Brahmin, he explains, are very rare, very valuable. You're lucky he's willing to part with one. The transaction is simple. Give him every cap you possess, receive one tumbleweed. New players often accept, thinking this is a quest trigger, that the Wind Brahmin is something meaningful. It's not. The Nightkin takes every cap in your inventory, whether that's 50 or 50,000, and you get a piece of wind-blown brush. You've been scammed by a schizophrenic super mutant. But here's where the community turns the tables. Genius New Vegas players have developed a counter-scam. Store all your caps in a nearby container before the interaction. Approach the Nightkin with exactly 0 caps, and he will still accept the deal. All caps means all 0 of them. The transaction completes. You get the unique dialogue without losing anything. The exploit is so well known that it appears in every New Vegas Secrets compilation. This encounter encapsulates the Nightkin's tragedy through absurdist comedy. The Nightkin genuinely believes he's selling you something valuable. He's not malicious, just delusional. The mental illness that destroys his mind has convinced him that tumbleweeds are livestock, and the player, armed with meta-knowledge, games the system. It's cruel, hilarious, and pure fallout. Now you know that even madness doesn't excuse you from making cash. Let's get into the creature that is the most visually disgusting. The centaur should not exist. This is a biological fact. The centaur is what happens when you throw humans, dogs, cats, and whatever else is lying around into a vat of forced evolutionary virus and wait to see what crawls out. The resulting chimera violates every principle of compatible genetics. Yet, here it shambles. A flesh accordion of mismatched limbs and tongues. The centaurs were the master's disposal system. Failed FEV experiments, the ones that didn't survive transformation with intelligence intact, went into vats along with animals, creating mobile toxic waste. They served no tactical purpose, held no positions of authority, and possessed no meaningful intelligence. They were pets, livestock. Yet, the community has attached themselves to them anyway, and the catalyst is a single centaur with the name Mo. Tabitha's broadcasts from Black Mountain are exercises in schizophrenic delusion, punctuated by moments of surprising tenderness. Between rants about her superiority as supreme commander of all super mutants, and conversations with her broken robot Rhonda, voiced entirely by the Nightkin Tabitha herself, she pauses to discuss her pet.
Rhonda, what's my favorite centaur Mo doing?
The question is asked with genuine affection, the same tone someone might use asking about their dog. The implication is clear. Mo is special, loved, and probably licking something he shouldn't be. Dialogue about Mo plays countless times across the Wasteland's radios. Players hear about Mo long before they see Mo. Expectations form. Perhaps Mo will be a friendly NPC, the Fallout equivalent of a three-tongued dog that just wants belly rubs. Perhaps Mo can even talk, will have unique dialogue options, a tragic backstory, a quest associated with his name. When you climb Black Mountain, you find Mo at the bottom of a highly irradiated crater, guarding the bodies of two dead Brotherhood of Steel paladins. He's just a centaur, an evolved centaur, specifically, larger and tougher than the standard variant, but mechanically identical. He has no unique AI, no special loot, no dialogue options. He aggroes on-site and attacks with the same radioactive spit and tongue whip as every other member of his species. And yet, the community mourns his death. When talking about the quest, some fans comment, "I killed Mo, and I feel bad." The grief is obviously ironic, but the emotion underneath is real. Tabitha's broadcasts create parasocial attachment to a creature that exists only as an ambient flavor text. The player imagines Mo's personality as mischievous, loyal, possibly flatulent, and then executes that imagined creature because it attacked them. This disconnect transforms a generic combat encounter into a tragic story beat solely through the ambient dialogue. This is a brilliant example of New Vegas' humor. All this build-up in the broadcasts, just for this ironic moment. The game never tells you Mo is special. Tabitha's broadcasts imply specialness, but the encounter itself is generic. The dissonance creates a narrative gap that the player's mind fills. You're not killing a generic enemy, but Tabitha's favorite centaur, the one creature in her isolated, paranoid world that she expresses affection for. You're making her sad, and it makes the world of the Mojave feel real. The fact that Tabitha is a paranoid schizophrenic who's hostile to all humans and runs a fascist super mutant state doesn't matter. The fact that Mo would absolutely have killed you doesn't matter. What matters is recognizing that in the Mojave's ecosystem of trauma, even monsters have companions, and your bullets just orphaned someone. The Mo phenomenon also triggered a larger reassessment. Are centaurs actually kind of cute? Look past the body horror, the exposed muscle, radiation tumors, and multiple tongues, and observe the behavior. Centaurs shuffle. They look around vacantly. They make small distress noises when idle. Their attack animations are slow, telegraphed, almost reluctant. They are, mechanically speaking, the least threatening major enemy in the game. A centaur's radioactive spit moves in a slow arc, easily dodged. They never travel alone because alone they'd be completely harmless. The community began to recontextualize them as dumb but cute. The wasteland's ugliest dog, the tumor puppy that just wants to exist. The horror has been metabolized into affection. This speaks to a more subtle aspect of Fallout's worldbuilding. Everything can be someone's pet. The Cazador is a tarantula hawkwasp, a real insect. Deathclaws are Jackson's chameleons scaled up through FEV. Centaurs are the family dog, if the family dog was also the family cat, the family human, and the failed genetic experiment. The Mojave has broken things that used to be natural, and some of those broken things have names. And once something has a name, killing it feels different. Tabitha's affection feels almost understandable now. The centaur has proved that even abominations can inspire affection. And sometimes the saddest part of the apocalypse isn't the death of people, but the death of the mutated things that loved them anyway. And thus we finally arrive at the most bizarre, existentially horrifying Fallout New Vegas creature. The Y-17 Trauma Override Harness is a spacesuit that walks. Inside the suit is a skeleton. The skeleton has been dead for 200 years, and the suit doesn't care. It keeps going anyway. You see, pre-war military technology obsessed over one problem: casualty retrieval. The wounded soldiers are liabilities. They slow units down, require evacuation, lower morale. The Y-17 was designed to solve this through automation. When a soldier reaches the critical injury threshold, the suit takes over. It walks them back to base. They don't need to think, navigate, or survive the journey. The suit handles everything. The design seemed brilliant until testing revealed the flaws. The injury threshold calibration was unreliable. Some suits activated too early, others too late. The suits couldn't determine if the occupant was dead, only that they stopped resisting or stopped to rest. Imagine you fall asleep after a hard, long day of war, and then you wake up in the middle of nowhere because your suit dragged you there. Can you even imagine something so bizarre? Not being in control of your own body? And if no home base was designated, the suits entered wander state, moving randomly across the battlefield with no recognition, no shutdown commands, no way to distinguish friendly from hostile. Then the Great War happened. Big MT's scientists and soldiers died inside their suits, and the suits, lacking a designated base, began wandering. They wandered for 2 centuries. The Y-17 medical facility was ground zero for the project. The researchers died mid-experiment at their stations, but their suits carried on. They continued manning the lab, performing repetitive maintenance tasks, attacking anyone who entered. 200 years of surveillance without purpose. Christine Royce, Brotherhood of Steel Knight, left a patent log before dying in the facility. She describes the suits as corpses trapped inside that keep them moving, no idea why. The audio log cuts off mid-sentence as explosions rock the building. Christine never finished her warning. The suits are still there. The community refers to this location as a walking coffin factory, because that's what the Y-17 is, a production line for mobile tombs. And when the users weren't dead, the suits tried to prevent their occupants from dying quickly. They couldn't remove the suits, couldn't shut them down, or even control their own movements as the harness walked them through endless patrol routes. Oxygen slowly depleting, starvation settling in, bones rattling inside a prison of synthetic muscle and reinforced plating. Some lasted days, some lasted weeks. All of them died screaming into the hermetically sealed helmets that no one could hear. If you have the Wild Wasteland trait active, one specific Y-17 unit speaks. The Y-17 Master Trauma Harness, the toughest variant in Big MT, will occasionally repeat a single phrase. Hey, Who turned out the lights? This is a reference to Doctor Who, specifically the episodes Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead. In that story, carnivorous shadow creatures called Vashta Nerada consume a man named Proper Dave inside his spacesuit. The suit's neural communication system retains an echo of Dave's consciousness, a data ghost, which degrades into repeating his final confused thought over and over. The suit walks, the ghost talks, but neither is alive. For players who recognize the reference, this is a moment of absolute horror, because it implies the Y-17 suits are also haunted. The neural recording system meant to help the suit learn combat behavior has preserved fragments of the occupant's dying consciousness. That consciousness is trapped in a loop, asking why the world went dark, why it can't see, why it can't stop moving. The phrase only triggers with Wild Wasteland, which means it's semi-canonical at best, but even without the spoken line, the implication exists in the suit's behavior. They patrol in patterns that suggest routine, muscle memory. The ghost of training exercise is long forgotten. When you shoot them, you hear bones rattling. This is even subtitled as small number of bones rattling and large number of bones rattling upon death. Somewhere in the degraded circuitry might be an echo of a person who never stopped asking why the lights went out. The Y-17 harness breaks fundamental FPS rules. Headshots are less effective because the brain isn't the skull inside the helmet, it's the computer in the torso. You can blow the skull completely off and the suit keeps fighting. This subverts 100 hours of player conditioning that says, aim for the head. This forces adaptation, target prioritization of the combat inhibitor on the back, or systematic limb destruction. The suits are also coded as female NPCs, which means Lady Killer and Cherchez la Femme perks provide bonus damage. This is simultaneously a mechanical quirk and an ontological nightmare. The skeleton inside might have been male or female, but the suit, the active combatant, is gendered feminine. You're not fighting the corpse, you're fighting the coffin. And here's the cruelest detail. If you have the cannibal perk, you can eat them. The game treats their remains as human flesh, despite being 200-year-old bones inside the synthetic muscle. If you have them's good eating, they might drop blood sausage or thin red paste. The suits are so convincing in their animation, so human in their movement, that the game perk itself forgets they're empty. The sync autodock, if properly installed and informed, eventually figures out how to disable suits remotely. This happens post-game, in the ending slides. You never see it happen. You just get a text scroll explaining that the autodock worked out a way to disable the suits and release their long-deceased occupants. 2 centuries of imprisonment, ended by a mechanical AI that learned compassion. The Y-17 harness teaches us that the cruelest imprisonment is being forced to keep moving when all you want is to stop, especially when your consciousness might survive as fragmented machinery. And this is why it's the most horrifying New Vegas creature, because it's not even a creature. It's a human corpse, and at the same time, it's a suit. The corpse and the suit are both lifeless, but they don't feel dead. It's post-humanist, like the spore carrier we covered earlier. Look at their skulls, and try to imagine the persons they used to be, and now see what remains. The personal aspects of New Vegas's creatures are not found in design documents. They're found in the space between intention and execution, where broken pathfinding creates memorable experiences, and great writing spawns memes. The lake lurk is intimidating until you start swimming with it. The Nightkin's schizophrenia is tragic until you're buying tumbleweeds from them. The centaur is horrifying until Tabitha calls it her favorite and you feel bad about murdering it. These creatures are the Mojave's true folklore. They are proof that the game's legacy isn't measured in graphics or mechanics, but in the stories players tell each other about the time they went straight north to New Vegas, the time a Nightkin scanned them, the existential terror of a walking human corpse asking why it can't see. The developers created them, the Gamebryo engine broke them, and the community immortalized them. And somewhere in that process lies the truth of what makes Fallout New Vegas unforgettable. Not because it's perfect, but because its writing has soul, and its bugs became features. Another one of New Vegas's most insane features is the fact that the game has over 1 quadrillion endings. That's right, someone did the calculations, and that's how many endings you can get. Click the video on the screen right now to learn about why New Vegas is a never-ending RPG game. Because the ending slide actually hides so many variables that you'll never see it in all your lifetime.